The cold winds blew across Winterfell, but inside the great hall the fire burned bright. Jon Snow stood by the window, watching the snow fall silently over the courtyard. He always felt like an outsider in this place, even though he had grown up here with his half-brothers and sisters. He was Ned Stark's bastard. That truth followed him like a shadow. But today, something was different. A loud horn echoed through the walls, followed by the sound of galloping horses. The banners of the crowned stag flew high. Robert Baratheon, King of the Seven Kingdoms, had arrived at Winterfell. Jon stood quietly by the back wall as Lord Stark welcomed the king. The great hall buzzed with excitement. Everyone waited to see what business the king had with the Warden of the North, but no one expected what Robert said next. "I have come north, not just to see an old friend," Robert said, looking at Ned. "I have come for your boy. Not Rob, the other one. The bastard." The room fell silent. Jon's heart pounded. Robert pointed straight at him. "You. What's your name, boy?" "Jon Snow, your grace," Jon replied, stepping forward, unsure. Robert walled him, eyes scanning him. "You look like your father," he muttered. "No, you look like your uncle." "Rhaegar." Ned stiffened. Robert. Robert raised his hand. "Let me speak. I've heard enough lies. It's time for truth. The realm needs a king who is strong, smart, and can lead men. My son Joffrey is a brat, a spoiled boy who will burn the kingdoms to ash." He looked again at Jon. You have Stark blood. And more, I believe. I've made mistakes. Too many. But if I can raise a boy to be king, the right king, maybe I can fix some of them." Everyone stared in shock. Jon couldn't speak. 1,000 thoughts rushed in his head. Why him? He was just a bastard. He had no name, no claim. Robert stepped closer. "You will come with me to King's Landing. I'll train you myself. In sword, war, politics, and ruling. You'll learn what it takes to wear a crown. And not just wear it, but keep it." Ned moved forward, his face hard. "He is not yours to take. He is if you want peace," Robert replied, voice heavy. "The Lannisters grow too strong. I need someone I can trust, someone with Stark honor. Let the boy decide." Jon looked at his father, or the man he had always thought of as his father, and then at the king. For the first time in his life, someone was giving him a chance. Not as a servant, not as a Night's Watch recruit, but as something greater. "I'll go," Jon said quietly. Ned looked pained, but nodded. "If this is your choice, then go with honor." The next morning, Jon left Winterfell, not as a bastard, but as a future king in training. As the royal caravan moved south, Robert began to teach Jon not just about ruling, but about lies, truth, and power. The king's face was often red with wine, but his mind, when clear, was sharp and full of old war stories. "You can't win a crown by being kind," Robert told him one night by the campfire, "but you can lose it if people don't love you or fear you." Jon listened carefully. He learned that the Iron Throne wasn't just a seat. It was a trap made of steel, secrets, and betrayal. "Remember, Jon," Robert warned. "In this game, trust no one, not even me." Jon rode toward King's Landing with a heart full of questions and a destiny that would change Westeros forever. The golden towers of King's Landing rose in the distance, glowing under the southern sun. Jon Snow had never seen a city so large, crowded with markets, beggars, soldiers, and smells he didn't recognize. It was nothing like Winterfell. It felt alive, noisy, dangerous. Robert Baratheon rode beside him, half drunk yet sharp when he spoke. "This city'll eat you alive, boy, if you don't learn fast. Keep your sword sharp and your mouth sharper. John nodded, but inside he was nervous. Every glance from the nobles, every whisper in the Red Keep made him feel small. He was still a bastard, no matter what Robert called him. The Lannisters didn't hide their hatred either. Queen Cersei barely acknowledged him, her green eyes cold as winter frost. "Another Stark in this castle," she muttered once, as if one wasn't enough. Joffrey laughed beside her. "He smells like the North." Robert snapped at them. "That boy will rule better than either of you ever could." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "And if he doesn't? What then?" Robert said nothing, but his silence was louder than any shout. Days turned into weeks. Jon began his training under Sir Barristan Selmy and Sir Jaime Lannister. Barristan taught him honor and swordsmanship. Jaime taught him something else. "Never fight fair," Jaime smirked during a spar. "Fair gets you killed. Smart gets you crowned." Jon fought hard, bruises covering his arms and legs. But each cut, each lesson made him sharper, stronger. He spent hours in the library with Maester Pycelle, learning the history of kings and how most of them died badly. One night, Robert sat with him by the fire, drinking from a heavy goblet. "You remind me of Rhaegar," he said. Jon blinked. "The Targaryen prince." "Aye." Robert's voice was softer now. "Not in looks, in eyes. Always thinking. That bastard was smart. Too smart. He knew things I didn't. He... Dot. He trailed off. Then, "Did Ned ever tell you about your mother?" Jon froze. "No." "He never spoke of her." Robert looked at the fire. "He wouldn't. Ned keeps secrets like a vault. But you should know this. Your blood isn't simple." Jon's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" "Not yet," Robert waved off. "Too soon. But remember what I say. Truth doesn't always bring peace. Sometimes it brings war." That night Jon couldn't sleep. He stared at the moon, thinking about who he truly was. Not just a Snow, maybe not even a Stark, but something else. Why would Robert speak of Rhaegar, of secrets? The next morning, a raven arrived. Jon watched from the corridor as Robert read the message and cursed loudly. "Tywin Lannister refuses to pay tax on his gold," Robert growled. "Says the crown owes him, not the other way around." Cersei smiled faintly. "He's a wise man. He's a sneak." Robert spat. "And I need to cut off his fangs." Later that day, Robert met with Jon in the garden. "You want to be king someday? Good. Then start acting like one. I'm sending you to Casterly Rock." Jon stiffened. "Alone? With a few men? Diplomacy, boy. You'll meet Tywin. Watch him. Learn how he plays his game." Jon nodded. He didn't like the sound of it, but he knew better than to say no. This was a test, a dangerous one. Before leaving, Jon met Arya, who had arrived with Ned on royal request. She hugged him fiercely. "You look different," she said. "You sound different, too." Jon smiled sadly. "A lot has changed." Arya grinned. "Just don't let those Lannister rats kill you." He laughed, but something in him was uneasy. Something was coming. He could feel it. At Casterly Rock, Lord Tywin met him with cold politeness. He was a tall, stiff man, all golden armor and stone eyes. His halls smelled of wealth and power and danger. "You're Robert's new project," Tywin said over dinner. "Training you like a loyal hound." "I'm here to learn," Jon replied calmly. Tywin studied him. "Good. Learn this. Kings fall. Dynasties die. Gold stays." Jon said nothing, but the words chilled him. That night he found a note hidden in his chamber. No signature. Only 5 words. "He knows who you are." Jon stared at the message, heart racing. Who wrote it? And what did it mean? The game had begun. The night inside Casterly Rock was quieter than Jon expected. Yet the silence felt heavy, like a sword hanging above his head. He stared at the piece of parchment again. He knows who you are. No seal, no signature. Just 5 words that changed everything. Who was he? Robert? Tywin? Someone else? Jon hid the note beneath the mattress. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he watched the shadows dance on the stone walls, listening to every creak and whisper in the halls, wondering if someone was watching him. By morning, he acted as if nothing had changed. Lord Tywin summoned him to the council chamber. The old lion sat at the head of a long table, flanked by 2 Lannister guards. A golden lion glared down from the banners above. "You'll deliver this letter to your king," Tywin said, pushing a sealed scroll toward Jon. "What does it say?" Jon asked. "That's not your concern," Tywin replied coolly. "But if I were you, I'd deliver it quickly, before the ink dries." Jon took the scroll, bowing slightly. "As you wish, my lord." As he left the chamber, his instincts screamed at him. Something wasn't right, and now he had 2 secrets in his pocket. The note and the scroll. One sent in silence, the other in gold. Both dangerous. That night, as he prepared to ride back to King's Landing, a maid knocked softly at his door. "I was told to give you this," she whispered, slipping him a folded piece of fabric. "From a friend." When Jon unfolded it, he saw the stitched emblem of a 3-headed dragon, the sigil of House Targaryen. His chest tightened. Could it be? That night, instead of riding east, Jon took a different road, one that led to an old inn nestled near the sea cliffs. It was abandoned, but someone had been there recently. The door creaked open slowly. Inside, a hooded man waited near the hearth, warming his hands. "You took your time," the man said without turning. "Who are you?" Jon asked, gripping the hilt of his sword. The man finally turned. His face was lean, scarred, and tired, but the eyes were sharp. Burning with knowledge. "My name is Sir Miles," he said quietly. "I serve Rhaegar Targaryen, and I served your mother." Jon froze. My mother?" Miles nodded. "Lyanna Stark." The name hit Jon like a hammer. "You're lying." "I wish I were," Miles said. "But I was there the night she gave birth to you, in the Tower of Joy. Your name is not Jon Snow. Your name is Aegon Targaryen, son of the last true dragon prince." Jon stumbled back, heart racing. "No, Ned Stark is my father. He raised you," Miles said, "but to protect you. If Robert knew the truth, he would have killed you as a babe, just like he killed every Targaryen child he could find." Jon fell silent. The world tilted beneath him. Everything he knew was a lie, but now Robert knows something, Miles added. Not the full truth, but he suspects. That's why he brought you to King's Landing, not just to train you, but to control you. Jon's fists clenched. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Tywin wants war, and Robert's death will be the excuse." Jon looked at the scroll in his saddlebag, the sealed letter from Tywin. "What's in it?" he asked. "A trap, a warning, a death sentence maybe," Miles said. "Deliver it, and Robert may fall. Destroy it, and you'll be marked a traitor." Jon took a long breath, his hands shaking. "I need proof." Miles nodded. "Then come with me. There's more you need to see, and others who still remember your father and your mother. The truth is larger than you think." And more dangerous. Jon looked back at the road behind him. King's Landing, Robert, Cersei, the Iron Throne. So was his past, and the secret that could burn the Seven Kingdoms to ashes. "I'll go," he said finally. They rode through the night, shadows at their backs, and in the capital, Robert Baratheon held the letter in his hands, reading Tywin's words with bloodshot eyes. "So it begins," he whispered. The Game of Thrones had shifted, and Jon Snow, now Aegon Targaryen, was at its center. They rode hard through the night, the cold air biting at their faces, hoofs pounding the dirt like war drums. Jon's thoughts raced faster than his horse. Every word Sir Miles had spoken haunted him. Aegon Targaryen. The name didn't feel real. It felt stolen, heavy, like a crown made of thorns. "How many people know?" Jon asked finally, breaking the silence. "Very few," Miles replied, "and most of them are dead. But some of us stayed in the shadows, waiting, hoping." "For what?" Jon asked bitterly. "For me to wear a crown I never asked for?" Miles looked at him. "Not to wear it, to deserve it." They reached a quiet valley at dawn. Hidden deep in the forest stood a small stone temple, ruined, ancient. Its pillars were cracked, and vines crawled over its walls like veins. Inside, a woman knelt beside a fire, whispering prayers in Valyrian. She looked up as they entered, her face worn but regal. "You brought him," she said. Her voice was calm, like still water. "Good." Miles bowed. "Lady Elenia, may I present?" "Lady Elenia, may I present?" "Aegon." Jon stepped forward. "I'm not." "You are," she said firmly. "You were born under the bleeding star. The dragon has 3 heads, and Rhaegar named you for conquest." Jon stared at her. "You speak in riddles." She smiled sadly. "No, just prophecy." Jon shook his head. "Prophecy didn't raise me. Ned Stark did. I'm not a Targaryen. I've never felt like one." Lady Elenia rose. "And yet the truth is the truth, whether you feel it or not. The blood in your veins is fire and ice. Stark and Targaryen. You are the balance this realm has been waiting for and fearing." Before Jon could answer, a young boy ran into the temple. Breathless. "Ravens from the capital," he gasped. "King Robert was attacked. He's wounded, poisoned." Jon's heart stopped. "What?" "The council says it was a boar," the boy continued, "but the word is spreading. Some say it was arranged, that someone wanted him dead." Jon looked at Miles. "The letter. Tywin's letter." Miles nodded grimly. "He moved faster than I expected." Jon clenched his fists. "If Robert dies, Joffrey takes the throne. The Lannisters will control everything." "No," Elenia said. "You must go back. Reveal yourself. Claim your name. Or this realm will bleed." Jon shook his head. "I can't walk into the Red Keep and say, 'Surprise, I'm a Targaryen.' They'll kill me before I open my mouth." "Not if you have allies," Miles said. "Not if the North remembers." Jon's eyes narrowed. "Ned, he doesn't know, does he?" Miles hesitated. "He suspects. He was there the night Lyanna died. He saw the truth in her eyes. But to protect you, he buried it deep." Jon looked away, his voice low. "He gave up everything, even his honor." "No," Elenia said. "He redefined it." Hours later, Jon stood alone outside the temple, wind blowing through his hair. He stared at the horizon where King's Landing waited like a trap, golden, bloody, and full of lies. He remembered Arya's face, Robb's laughter, The way Ned used to place a hand on his shoulder, never saying much, but saying everything. If he was truly Aegon, then this wasn't just about a throne. It was about war, about choosing sides, about truth, vengeance, and legacy. You turn to Miles. We go back. They traveled secretly. Disguised as merchants, they made their way through winding roads and back channels, avoiding Lannister patrols. Whispers followed them like shadows. Whispers followed them like shadows. When they reached the capital, the city had changed. Black banners were raised. The bells rang in mourning. Robert Baratheon was dead. Jon stared at the red keep from a rooftop at dusk. It looked like a monster made of stone and teeth. Inside, Joffrey sat on the Iron Throne, crowned in haste, guarded by Lannisters. Jon felt a fire inside him, not of ambition, but of fury. Miles stood beside him, not of ambition, but of fury. Miles stood beside him. This is your moment. Either you step forward, or the world steps on you. Jon breathed deeply. I won't run anymore. That night, the raven flew from the shadows with a sealed letter. To Lord Eddard Stark, Hand of the King. It began, My name is Aegon Targaryen. I am your nephew, and I am ready to fight. The letter reached Ned Stark just before sunrise. He sat alone in his chambers in the Red Keep, the weight of Robert's death pressing hard on his shoulders. The ink on Robert's will was barely dry, and already the halls buzzed with whispers. Joffrey had taken the throne without the council's approval. Cersei controlled the gold, the guard, and the crown, all without lifting a sword. But it was the letter in his hand now that made his blood run cold. My name is Aegon Targaryen. I am your nephew, and I am ready to fight. Ned read it again and again. His heart told him it was true. His eyes burned with the memory of Lyanna, dying in blood and silence, whispering one last plea. Promise me, Ned. He had kept that promise, hidden the boy, called him Snow, endured the shame of fathering a bastard. Let Catelyn's heart grow cold toward him, all to protect his sister's son, the last dragon. But now Jon, Aegon, had returned, and the storm had come with him. Ned tucked the letter beneath his armor and stood. He knew what he had to do. Meanwhile, Jon stood in the shadows near the city's edge, cloaked in brown, his sword hidden under a worn traveler's coat. The city felt like a coiled snake, ready to strike at any moment. The guards at the gates wore crimson cloaks now. Lannister read. Even the poor whispered Cersei's name with fear. Miles returned from the market with news. Joffrey has declared himself king. The small council bows to him, all except your uncle. Jon's jaw tightened. Then we need to reach Ned. Before the Lannisters do. They made their move that night. Under moonlight, Jon slipped into the Red Keep, through the old catacombs, guided by a map Miles had stolen years ago. The same tunnels Varys once used, the same paths used by spies and ghosts. The castle above was alive with lies, but down here only silence ruled. Finally they reached Ned's chambers. 2 Stark guards stood outside, loyal to the last. Jon pulled down his hood. The guards froze. Gods, one whispered. Is it truly you? It is, Jon said. I need to see him. Inside, Ned stood by the window gazing at the city that had become his prison. When he turned and saw Jon, his eyes went wide, not with surprise but with sorrow. You shouldn't have come, Ned said quietly. You knew, Jon said. All this time. Ned nodded slowly. I knew. And I kept it from you because the truth was a blade sharper than any sword. It still is. Jon stepped forward. Robert is dead. Joffrey sits on the throne. If I don't act now, it will all fall to the lions. You think you can stop them? Ned asked. You are one boy, alone, I'm not alone anymore, Jon replied. The North will rise. The truth will rise. Ned studied him for a long moment. Then, without a word, he opened a chest near his bed and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in direwolf fur. Inside was a scroll, Lyanna's last words, written in shaking hands, and a ring, silver, with the sigil of House Targaryen carved into the stone. She made me promise to protect you, Ned said, but she never said I couldn't tell the world one day. If the day was right, Jon took the scroll in his hands, feeling the weight of legacy. It's time, he said, to tell the truth, but truth has a price. Before they could move, steel rang in the hallway. Screams, then silence. The door burst open. Sir Meryn Trant stepped in, blood on his blade. The Queen sends her regards. Behind him, gold cloaks flooded the room. Jon grabbed his sword. Ned stepped in front of him. No, Jon growled. I won't let them take you. You must live, Ned said. If you die, the truth dies with you. Jon hesitated, just long enough for Miles to pull him back through the secret door. Go! Ned shouted as the gold cloaks stormed in. The last thing Jon saw was his uncle raising his sword, alone against the storm. They ran through the tunnels, through fire and darkness. When they reached the city's edge, Jon looked back. The red keep glowed under torchlight, but he knew, behind those walls, everything had changed. Ned Stark was taken prisoner, and now smoke curled above King's Landing as dawn broke, casting an eerie red glow across the rooftops, like the city itself was bleeding. News of Ned Stark's arrest spread faster than wildfire. Whispers in brothels, murmurs in taverns, silent prayers in the sept, the hand of the king betrayed, taken by the queen herself. Jon, hidden deep in the slums of Fleabottom, heard every word. He sat in a candlelit cellar beneath an old butcher's shop. The air stank of blood and rats, but his fury drowned out the filth. My uncle stood for honor, Jon spat, and they put chains on him like a dog. Sir Miles paced nearby. Cersei knew what was coming. She struck first. Jon slammed his fist into the wall. I should have stayed, fought with him. You would have died, Miles said firmly, and then there would be no one left to fight. Jon fell silent, breathing hard. His thoughts were a storm, guilt, rage, confusion. But beneath it all, something clearer was rising, purpose. He was done hiding. We start now, Jon said coldly. No more secrets. No more waiting. That night, they met with an old ally in a ruined stable outside the city walls. The man cloaked in black fur, riding a horse that knew the northern snow. Yoren, Jon said with a sharp nod. Didn't think I'd find you alive, Snow, the Night's Watch recruiter grunted. Or should I say, Targaryen. Jon raised an eyebrow. You knew. Yoren spit into the hay. The Black Brothers hear all kinds of things, and I know dead men when I see them. If you stay here, you're one of them. I'm not leaving, Jon said. But I need help. I need to send ravens north, to Winterfell, to the Vale, even to the Riverlands. Yoren gave him a hard look. You planning to start a war? Jon didn't flinch. No, I'm planning to win one. Yoren studied him a long moment, then grunted. I'll get the ravens out. But if you fail, all those names will burn with you. Jon nodded. Then I won't fail. By morning, messages flew on black wings. In Winterfell, Robb Stark crushed the parchment in his hand. The words burned. Ned Stark imprisoned. Treason declared. Jon is alive. The Lannisters have moved. War is near. Robb looked at his bannermen. Call the banners. War Great Shawnumber said with a grin. Finally. No, Robb said. Justice. In the Eyrie, Sansa wept quietly in her chambers, while Lysa Arryn argued with her council. They beg for support, Lysa scoffed. Let them beg, but sweet, clever. Robin Arryn stared out the window and whispered, Mother, didn't Uncle Ned always protect us? Even in madness, truth sometimes found a voice. In River Run, Catelyn Stark held the Raven's message in trembling fingers. She read Jon's signature and wept, not just for Ned, but for the boy she had once hated. He was never just a Snow, she whispered. He was always something more. Back in King's Landing, Joffrey sat the Iron Throne like a child playing with fire. He ordered Ned's execution, laughing as if it were a game. Cersei smiled beside him. Let the realm know, lions rule now. But Varys, ever quiet, sent his own little birds. One message, one warning. The dragon is alive, and he is not alone. 3 days later, the city shook with rumors. A riot broke out in the slums. Gold cloaks were ambushed in the alleys. A Lannister guard vanished from the Red Keep. And across the gates of the Sept of Baelor, someone painted words in fresh red blood. Aegon lives, the king shall burn. Cersei flew into a rage. Find him. She screamed. I want his head. Bring me that bastard's skull. But Jon was already gone. Deep beneath the city, in tunnels older than the Targaryen conquest, Jon and Miles gathered their small force, sellswords, northern spies, black brothers gone rogue. Not many, but enough. We strike the night they move Ned, Miles said. Before, they parade him like a prize. Jon tightened his grip on his sword. We don't just free him, we make a statement. You planning to kill a king? Miles asked carefully. Jon's eyes were cold. No, I plan to take his throne. The moon hung high over King's Landing, pale and watchful as the streets below stirred with silent rebellion. The city didn't know it yet, but its golden peace was about to shatter. Deep beneath the Red Keep, in tunnels long forgotten by kings, Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, crouched beside Miles, watching the movement of guards from cracks in the stone walls. They're moving Ned tonight, Miles whispered. Through the alley behind the Septine, minimal escort. They want no scene. Jon's jaw clenched. Good, 'cause we're about to give them one. Their ragged force waited behind him. Black-cloaked, Night's Watch deserters, northern loyalists in disguise, a few exiled knights who once bent the knee to Rhaegar. It wasn't an army. It was barely a warband, but they had fire in their hearts, and Jon had something stronger than gold or numbers, a name that could burn the realm. We strike fast. We hit hard, Jon said. We kill no innocents, but if any lion bares its teeth, break it. Miles grinned. You sound like a king already. Jon looked ahead. No, I sound like a Stark. Moments later, the trap began. The Lannister guards escorted Ned Stark through the side path behind the Septive, where shadows loomed long and cold. His wrists were chained, his face bruised, but his back still straight. He was Ned Stark. Then came the sound. Soft at first, like whispers, then louder. Steel unsheathing. Boots rushing over stone. Then the shadows exploded. Jon led the charge, his sword flashing in the moonlight. For the north, he roared. The first Lannister didn't even have time to scream. Miles struck the second in the throat, blood spraying the cobbles. The third tried to run. An arrow caught him in the spine before he took 3 steps. Chaos. Screams echoed through the alley. Torches dropped. A horn blew from the Red Keep, warning the city. Jon cut through the chains around Ned's wrists as two more enemies closed in. "You came," Ned rasped, shock and pain in his eyes. "I said I was ready to fight," Jon growled. "You didn't think I meant with letters, did you?" Ned managed a tight smile, even as he grabbed a sword from a fallen guard. "Just like your father." They fought back to back, Stark and Snow, no longer uncle and bastard, but men bound by blood and battle. Miles pushed them forward. "Go," he barked. "The horses are in the alley." They fled through fire and smoke. Behind them, the city awoke with fury. Bells rang. Gold cloaks poured into the streets. Lannister banners unfurled from towers like bloodstained cloth. Jon mounted his horse and reached for Ned's reins. To the docks. But as they galloped through King's Landing, the people saw them, and something strange happened. They didn't cry out. They didn't scream or run. They watched. Watched the boy with the Stark face and Targaryen fire riding through their city like a storm. Watched him turn and raise a black flag with a silver wolf and three-headed dragon stitched together. And someone, just one voice, shouted, "The true king." Then another, "The dragon wolf," and the chant spread, louder than the bells. "Aegon lives! Aegon lives! Aegon lives!" At the docks, the ship waited, a black-sailed vessel flying no house colors. As Jon and the others boarded, a messenger ran to him. "From Varys," the man said. "He says, 'Let the lions roar. The rats are already in their walls.'" Jon nodded. "Then we strike before they find the nest." As the ship pulled away from the shore, the Red Keep blazed behind them. Ned stood beside Jon, clutching the railing, wind in his grey hair. "You declared yourself," he said softly. "I didn't mean to," Jon replied. "But the people did." Ned placed a hand on his shoulder. "And sometimes that's how kings are born." Far across the realm, ravens took flight once more. To Winterfell, to the Vale, to Riverrun, to Dragonstone. The wolf of the north and the dragon of the east had become one, and the boy once called Snow was no longer hiding in the shadows. He was coming for the throne. Waves crashed against the black hull of the ship as it sailed east, cutting through the dawn mist like a blade. Jon stood at the bow, cloak snapping in the wind, eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind him, Westeros burned with question. Who was this Aegon Targaryen? Why did the North rise again? And would the boy with the blood of dragons and wolves bring peace or fire? Ned Stark stood quietly beside him. Days had passed since the escape, but the weight of it still sat heavy between them. "You become more than I imagined," Ned said finally. Jon didn't turn. "I became what this war needed." "No," Ned said firmly. "You became what the realm deserves." Jon swallowed hard. "Do you regret it? Hiding me? Letting me grow up in the cold while the world forgot my name?" Ned sighed. "Every day, but I don't regret protecting you. If I hadn't, the Lannisters would have killed you in your crib. Even Robert might have." Jon nodded slowly. "He didn't hate me." "No, but he hated your name, and that was enough." Their ship approached Dragonstone, the ancient seat of House Targaryen, now abandoned and cold. Smoke curled from its towers like breath from a sleeping beast. The castle was empty, but it still remembered fire. As Jon stepped onto the rocky shore, he felt something shift inside him, like the stones beneath his feet knew his blood. "This place belonged to your ancestors," Miles said as they climbed the black stairs. "But it was never ruled by someone like you." "Someone like me?" Jon asked. "A Stark and a Targaryen, a dragon raised in the snow." Inside the hall, Jon's followers gathered. Rob's bannermen had started arriving, not in force but in faith. Small groups, old allies. Blackfish Tully, Lady Mage Mormont, even Sir Davos Seaworth. The Onion Knight stood by the fire with a weathered smile. "I heard stories," Davos said, gripping Jon's hand. "But seeing you stand here, it gives me hope. It gives me hope." "Hope won't win a war," Jon replied. "Steel and truth will." Davos nodded. "Aye, but truth sharpens steel better than any whetstone." They held a war council that night. Ned, Miles, Davos, and the few northern lords loyal to the cause sat around a long stone table, shaped like Westeros, the same table Rhaegar once stood over. "King's Landing is vulnerable," Davos said. "The people chant your name in the streets. You expose Joffrey's cruelty. But Cersei still holds the crown," Ned added. "And with Robert gone, there is no one left to counter her power in court. Then we bring the war to her gates," Jon said. "Not just with swords, with fire, with truth." Miles placed a hand on a scroll. "We spread your name, your birth, your right. When the people know who you are, the Lannisters won't be fighting a rebellion. They'll be fighting the rightful king." Ned looked uneasy. "This path ends in blood." Jon looked at him. "Every path does. But this one might end in justice too." As the fire crackled, a quiet knock echoed through the chamber doors. A guard entered, bowing quickly. "Your Grace, she's here." Jon stood. "Who?" But when the doors opened, his breath caught in his throat. "Arya." She strode into the hall, dressed in dark leathers, face harder than he remembered. But her eyes, those grey, stark eyes, were still full of fire. "You idiot," she said flatly. "You were supposed to stay safe." Jon smiled. "It's good to see you too." They embraced without words, without hesitation. Family didn't need explanations. "I escaped the Red Keep the night they took father," Arya whispered. "They thought I was a servant girl." "You always did hide well," Jon replied. She pulled back. "I've been watching, listening. They hate you, and they fear you. That means you're doing something right." Jon looked around the room. "Then it's time to give them a reason to fear me more." The next morning, Jon climbed to the highest tower of Dragonstone. A raven sat waiting. He tied a scroll to its leg, one written in his hand, with his name signed bold at the bottom, Aegon of House Targaryen, first of his name, the Dragon Wolf, rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. He whispered to the raven, "Fly fast." As it vanished into the sky, Jon looked down at the realm carved in stone before him. One kingdom, one crown, and only one chance to take it.